The following is an exclusive presentation of News Radio KMAN, your home for K-State athletics. This is Wildcat Insider with the Mercury sports editor Tim Everson and KMAN sports director Mitch Fortner.
Tim, do you ever watch like the World Series of Poker?
At times.
During the summer, and it's a big hand, it's a showdown, a couple of all-ins. And the guy that's behind, they're showing the graphic on the screen. He's got, whatever his hand is. And they're giving this guy like a 5% chance of winning the hand. He needs to catch a king. He needs to catch an ace on the river. And he will yell, "One time, baby, one time." That one time means the poker gods are going to answer his one prayer. He gets this one shot to pull one out of his backside and win a hand when the odds were not in his favor. I felt like Saturday against the Kansas Jayhawks, it was a one-timer. That was their one. Not against Colorado. Not against Colorado, because I go to the Jalen Daniels fumble. That gave K-State great field position. Time remaining on the clock. You're on the plus side of the 2-minute timeout. And K-State just needed to get 51 yards away from a game-winning field goal for Chris Tennant to nail it. And yes, he did nail it. He could have made it from his comfort zone of 58 yards, it looked like. K-State really pulled one of their backside on Saturday. 29-27, Bill Snyder Family Stadium, 52,000 plus on hand to watch the Cats win its 16th straight against the Kansas Jayhawks. Welcome to Wildcat Insider. I'm Mitch Fortner with Tim Everson. AJ Shaw is across the glass. And guys, we are live on YouTube. You can actually watch us live. We got the cameras going. I'm looking at camera 1. Tim's got camera 2. We're live streaming now, boys and girls. We made it to the big time. Find us on YouTube. Search for Wildcat Insider. We've also put the stream link on Facebook and Twitter at the game KMAN, at 1350 KMAN. And find us on find KMAN on Facebook as well. And you can watch our beautiful faces. You know these faces that are made for radio? Now they're made for YouTube.
Yeah. Congrats, everybody.
Except me, because I don't have to be on YouTube.
Well, we had the budget for 2 cameras, so we're like, all right, who are we going to put these cameras on? Me, of course, and Tim, who's in studio for our Mondays now for Wildcat Insider. We got a lot to talk about. I want to talk more, of course, about the win against KU. We're going to hear from Chris Tennant in our next segment, who I thought after the game had a phenomenal 4 or 5 minutes with the media, because we never get Chris Tennant.
No.
But rarely has he had these kind of opportunities. I can think of 2 off the top of my head. And especially 51-yard field goals, which ties a career high for longest distance for Chris Tennant. You're going to hear an abbreviated version of that press conference, more like a little scrum session, coming up in our next segment after our first break. You're going to hear from the voice of the Wildcats, Wyatt Thompson at 5'10". And right here, in my very hand, my right hand, I'm holding 2 tickets for tomorrow's game. And you're like, Mitch, what's happening tomorrow? I'm pleased to tell you that basketball exhibition play for K-State begins tomorrow night. Bramlage Coliseum against the dreaded Fort Hays State Tigers.
Yeah.
This is the first time that Fort Hays State will be in Bramlage Coliseum since they actually beat K-State in a K-State regular season game in Bruce Weber's last year. So finally, K-State will get that opportunity at Redemption. And I've also noticed on K-State's website, this game is almost sold out. So I have 2 tickets in my hand. We are giving these away. Almost bent one. Oops. 2 tickets in my hand. We're giving those away in hour number 2, so stand by for those details on how to win those tickets. Tim, how bad did your nerves get? Because we were both at the game last year.
Yeah.
Will Howard gets it done. It's getting late enough in the game. Like, third quarter, I'm fine, even though KU took the lead. I'm fine. We were in this spot last year. Then we get into the fourth quarter. The offense is stalling. Like, they're getting some big plays, but they're stalling around midfield. They're settling for field goals. And like around the 5-minute mark, when K-State had a punt and when Avery rolled into that sack, I'm like, this is not good. Yeah. I'm not feeling good. My legs were shaking.
Straight up not having a good time. I would say that there was always somewhere in the back of my mind, winning 16, 15 in a row at the time. It does delude you a little bit into thinking, all right, it's gonna come, and I'm sure eventually that will be the case, that it does not come. But especially the Avery sack was dicey. I don't know. There was just something in my head that I was just like, they found a way. This team specifically has found a way in close games. They have they've more than found a way 15 times in a row versus KU. And maybe if the fumble wouldn't have happened, that's maybe when some real panic would have set in. But I think I was still convinced until the fumble happened that something was going to break right for K-State. But it was pins and needles there up until the fumble.
Well, like the Colorado game, this game had in my opinion, a ton of storylines. And I'm sorry, I feel like my voice is all messed up. Whenever these big games happen, it's like I need 2 days for my voice to come back. So we're going to hear from Chris Kleiman here in just a moment. But a lot of storylines. I mean, in the first half, K-State, they caught a ton of breaks. Like the second half last year in Lawrence, caught a ton of breaks. And K-State made some mistakes. KU started to catch some breaks. Like, I think as just a college football fan, if I was watching this game as just a casual fan or just a big fan of college football, I was very entertained. For a game that was, both teams were under 30 points, it wasn't necessarily a shootout, but both teams had big plays. You had lead changes. You had drama. It wasn't perfect football by any means. Both teams had their mistakes. It was very entertaining football. Chris Kleiman, we'll work our way backwards and get to those breaks here in a little bit, but we got to start with the end of the game. Chris Tennant from 51 yards, the game winner. Chris Kleiman said after the game, confidence for that kid was sky high. Both teams had their mistakes.
Chris Tennant, I knew
it was very entertaining football. Where is that coming from? Why am I getting an echo? Is this a YouTube thing? Are we messing up on the stream? No, we'll figure it out. All right, we'll try this again. I think I fixed it. Chris Tennant once again, or Chris Kleiman once again, after the game talking about Chris Tennant and the game-winning field goal.
The last month of watching Chris Tennant, I knew that was going in. I had no doubt in my mind. There was nobody on our sideline that had any doubt, because for 1 month, that kid has just done nothing at practice but drill the football, and it was exciting for him to be able to do that, being a senior from Kansas.
All right, trivia question. Everybody like trivia questions? Chris Tennant had actually hit a 51-yard field goal twice prior to that game against KU 2 nights ago. Anybody recall those games? He hit one last year, then hit another one a couple of years prior to that.
Southeast Missouri and Texas.
Somebody already looked it up.
And that's the good thing about writing a whole story about it. It's like, hopefully I would know that.
But things have changed over the years.
Absolutely.
Because Chris Tennant, going back to his first year as a Cat, he basically started kicking, halfway through 2021. He was missing extra points. Mm-hmm. It was that shaky. It wasn't, and he was also missing the shorter field goals. He's actually been quite decent at the longer field goals throughout his history. I'll get you some numbers here in just a moment. But then you go to 2022. This is Chris Tennant's job. You get to the TCU game. That TCU game 2 years ago, we're talking about the first one in Fort Worth, was just completely out of whack. K-State defenders are dropping like flies. You had 5 or 6 guys go to the locker room, but the Cats are still in striking distance. Chris Tennant needs to make 2 big field goals, and he misses them both. And at that point, he gets benched. It's Ty Zentner the rest of the season, and he was the hero in the Big 12 championship game. So, really, was it other than last year at Texas? If I remember correctly, this is really Tennant's first big moment at home to kick a game-winning field goal. My confidence was like, all right, he's been better than previous years. He's older. If this was last year or 2 years ago, no, not the same level of confidence. So I believed in him. What did you feel like going into that kick?
I was definitely nervous. Kleiman has been, not just for this game, all season, he's really complimented Tennant on just how he's handled things, the leadership that he's shown. He's become kind of the older guy in that special teams unit. They lost a couple of long-time guys that were, at the holding and long snapping before. But, I leaned over and told Zach Deloach, one of the other writers over at the Mercury, I was like, all right, it's Tennant time. Let's see. And I think he knew when he kicked it that it was good. And yeah, I mean, it is the biggest field goal probably since Zittner's game winner in the Big 12 championship.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean,
Tennant sent the Texas game last year in overtime.
Yeah.
That was to tie the game. I mean, they're all big kicks, right?
Right.
This one's a little bit, though. I put it up on a higher pedestal because it's KU. If you miss that, you're probably going to lose because KU would just need a first down and the game is over. So, just based on what was riding on that kick, I mean, I put that. I do put that ahead of every other one of his kicks because it is KU.
Absolutely,
you're one to hold on to the streak. Everybody wants to say Tennant's a Kansas kid. He's a military kid. He moved around all his life. He just, he's based out of in his football career. He's a Shawnee, Kansas kid. He had never watched a Division I game until he played his first game at K-State. Or watched the game live, I should say.
Right.
Let me get to then the other part of this final portion of the game. All right, so K-State then kicks off to KU. They got a minute 47 to try to go win the game. They just needed a field goal. Boy, I tell you what, Joe Klanderman really dialed up that Phil Bennett defense and just came after KU with everything they had. I was talking to some guys earlier, and I think we all agreed that that's probably probably the reason why K-State won the game. They had to do that. Mm-hmm. And VJ Payne, how about that fourth down play? I don't think I've seen him run that fast. I know he can run that fast, but VJ on that fourth down, I mean, it's a safety blitz. K-State brings 6. They were all out to go win that game on that drive.
Yeah, what did Kleiman say? He reached 26 miles per hour?
Not 26. I don't know if that's possible.
That made it too fast.
21.
21. Still, he was booking it, and that's got to not feel good when something that fast hits you.
Here's Chris Kleiman bringing the heat for the defense on the final drive for KU.
Said, we're going to play man, we're going to bring it and get him at least hurried up. And the first couple times we did it, we were bringing it off the weak side because that's where they had the protection issues. Had one normal cover 2 that they got 4 or 5 yards and then heated them up again.
Yep, and that was, it was hard for the defense when they would bring a blitz. Like, they would get back there and get Jalen Daniels to scramble, but, man, it kind of reminded me of Shadur Sanders, where Shadur was really good at scrambling. Nobody was touching him. K-State did get home 6 times against Shadur. Officially only 1 sack against Jalen Daniels. Jalen, I thought, played absolutely his best game.
Yeah.
And it was against K-State. And when you would scramble, you'd throw on the money. The defense was very up and down against KU in this game. But in the final 4 drives for the Jayhawks in the fourth quarter, they do not score. Textbook Jayhawks this year. 6 times now. Yeah. They have blown it in the fourth quarter. This is just their MO this year. That's what they do. So just K-State had to do it in a little bit of a harder fashion than ever really any other teams, maybe with the exception of UNLV.
Yeah, and something that we got to talk to Coach Kleiman and the players earlier today, something he brought up about the blitz. They were saving it. They did not go after him, after Jalen Daniels, that hard for most of the game. And they just kind of kept this last bullet in their pocket. And they waited and they waited and they waited. And then they found the perfect time to deploy it, and it worked. I mean, it was just – he had nothing. He was completely busted the offense.
KU was playing that game absolutely motivated.
Oh, absolutely.
I think you called like a 4-score win for K-State on Power K game day. I said a 2-score win. I felt like I was a bit cautious, which is saying – I feel like K-State could definitely win this by more than 2 scores. It was close. I give KU a lot of credit because for a lot of that ball game, I thought their offense looked better, even though K-State did, of course, bust out some big plays in the run and the pass. Once again, DJ Gins was over 100 yards, $102. No touchdowns, but almost 6 yards per carry. I mean, KU was trying to shut down Gins, and he did bust out a couple of big runs, including a 54-yarder. Dylan Edwards had a 44-yarder, and Chase Brown was just 2 yards shy of 100 on the night. And by the way, two more passing touchdowns to tight ends. 10 passing touchdowns for Avery Johnson to tight ends. That does now officially lead the country. They were tied with BYU going into last week's games. And the other thing I wanted to touch on, again, I thought, felt like kind of K-State was a little bit more creative with the offense as well. Their execution looked a little bit better. Mm-hmm. Breaks was also a huge part of this. The drop touchdown for KU in the end zone that would have put them up 2 scores was monster. There should have been a holding penalty, but that didn't get called. And then what else was there? Oh, yeah. The kick returner for KU stepping out of bounds when he caught it at the 1 yard line, which I called it immediately on the PA, and they were reviewing it, and I was like, I called it from up there. I thought it was just perfect timing where he stepped out before or after catching the football, and then they get the safety with KU snapping at the 1 yard line. So K-State, I thought, and there's more breaks than that we could get to, but K-State, like last year in Lawrence, caught a lot of big breaks.
Yeah, but at the same time, those breaks, you got to take advantage of the opportunities when they're given to you on both sides.
Blocked or a missed extra point off the upright.
Yeah, you know what? And K-State makes all their extra points. K-State returns the ball properly. K-State doesn't get to a point where they're lined up on the 1 yard line and Damian Alio gets one of the easiest safeties that you'll ever see. I mean, it's...
Yeah. Hey, K-State is more disciplined. If you didn't understand what Tim was trying to tell you, more disciplined here in Manhattan, Kansas. Maybe it's just the farm, the ag in Kansas State University. And here's another thing I want to touch on real quick. Shame on Jalen Daniels for this part of the game, his last 2 drives. He fumbled twice. But what was he doing when he ran? Well, the first one more than the second one, because that second one was on 4th down. Had to go make a play. K-State's bringing the heat, as Kleiman said. But on that first one, what in the hell are you doing diving?
Secure the ball.
Secure, and why are you diving?
It was on 2nd down.
You slide, ding dong.
Slide.
I'm not rooting for you in any means. I'm just like, you're the veteran here.
No, it has to be absolutely maddening, and I know, he played very well, especially for what he's done this season. It was a clear high water mark for him to versus K-State, but you are a senior. You have played...
Well, technically a redshirt junior.
Redshirt junior, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, he's the one in that group of all those seniors that he's actually not technically a senior. So I think he still has a COVID year left. He medically redshirted. Now he has a COVID year to use.
You have been playing college football since you were 17 years old. Secure the football, man. What are you doing?
Let's see. It was Damian that forced the safety. He was he got credited with the safety. Austin Romaine with the first forced fumble. Who had the second one?
Austin Romaine had the forced fumble to give K-State the ball to kick the field goal.
Right.
And then Brendan Mott landed on it.
Right. I can't remember who was officially the tackler on that play. What I do remember from that play, Austin Moore. If you go back and watch the broadcast, or everybody's been tweeting about it, and it's super sick. It's awesome. Nobody loves to beat KU more than Austin Moore, and I'm quoting a bunch of K-State players who have said that. Yeah. Somebody took a little bit of a late hit, and that someone is probably KU's best defensive player in the box, and J.B. Brown. Gave Austin a little bit of a cheap shot there at the end of that game on that 4th down play. How does Austin get up? With the best taunt I've seen in years. He waves the wheat in front of that KU bench. Nobody's stopping him. He did it for a good 10 seconds or so.
He's right on the side. I mean, it was brazen.
What's going to happen?
What's going to happen?
Give him 15-yard penalty. Give him unsportsmanlike. Guess what? It's his first of the game, and it doesn't matter.
And maybe his first, when has he ever been called for unsportsmanlike? He's not a taunter. He doesn't taunt. He doesn't,
I've heard he is.
Oh, is he?
I've heard he's a talker.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of love that then.
Let's take a timeout, and when we come back, we're going to hear from K-State kicker Chris Tennant, who hit the game winner from 51 yards out. It was a no-doubter, although some certainly did doubt him and have doubted him in the past. He had a great scrum after the game, and you're going to hear that audio when we come back on The Game.
You're listening to Wildcat Insider.
We are back. Wildcat Insider, Mitch Fortner, Tim Everson, and A.J. Shaw. A little bit more here on Chris Tennant. He now has 238 career points at K-State. He moved into 9th place all-time for the Cats. To give you the total, 238. That is 5th among kickers all-time. Distance for Chris Tennant's game-winning field goal of 51 yards. He has made that twice in his career. Chris Tennant is now 3 of 4 in kicks of 50-plus yards, which I do believe the miss was at Tulane before half, kicking into the wind.
Yeah.
It was a pretty strong win there in New Orleans. From 40 to 49 yards, Tennant is 10 of 15, but he missed 3 times in 2022. 9 of 12 from 30 to 39 yards. He is perfect the last 2 years. 20 to 29 yards. 15 of 19, he is perfect this season, 4 of 4, and he has never attempted a field goal 1 to 19 yards, which you got to snap that thing inside the 3.
Right.
So, Kleiman's going for it, is what you're going to do in that situation. But he was one of the heroes, and by the way, shout out to on the YouTube chat from Matthew, who did double check our work here, and I went back and watched the play because I thought Tobias Nsami also was in there on that tackle. Maybe he would have forced the fumble, but it was officially VJ Payne who did force that last fumble. It rolls out of bounds. Unfortunately, the Cats could not recover it because that would have meant 3 turnovers for Jalen Daniels. Back to his he's back to midseason form after 2 games of not turning it over, which now gives him, by my count, I believe he now has 12 turnovers this season.
That sounds correct. Yes, I think so.
Because I believe 3 games ago he was at 9 or 10. So I believe we're somewhere right in that neighborhood. What we're saying is that's a ton of turnovers.
It's a lot.
I want to talk about Mike Dibbini coming up here a little bit later on in this first hour. Hour number 2 kicks off with the voice of the Cats, Wyatt Thompson. Let's hear from K-State senior kicker Chris Tennant, who hit the game winner to put K-State ahead and with the winning score of 29-27. This is from Saturday. As he spoke with the K-State media, I thought this was really good stuff. Unfortunately, I had to cut it down to less than 4 minutes. Here is Chris Tennant from Saturday.
They take us to the field goal, and kind of the confidence you had going into that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start 3 years ago today. It was 3 years ago this weekend. It was the first time I was getting interviewed. And it was after that TCU game. I hit my first field goal, and they gave me the spot. And since then, it's been an up-and-down ride. I'll be the first to admit. There's been lows, there's been highs, and I'm grateful for all of it. Coming to this field goal, I had this gut feeling, and I can't even describe it. Most people wouldn't even understand it, but first quarter I knew there was going to be a big kick. And as I said, it's unexplainable to someone who's never felt it, but knowing that going into it was helpful. And the kick itself, it's funny because I told Simon, the holder, our holder, we had the celly where he tossed me up the baseball, and I swing at it and hit it, and we had that planned out for a while, and I said, Simon, get the ball down, hold the ball, and get ready to toss the baseball. And I told him, and I said, I probably repeated it 4 or 5 times, be ready to toss the baseball, be ready to toss the baseball. And it's funny because after I hit the kick, right when I made contact, I knew it was good. And I said, Simon, toss it, Simon, toss it. And he was sitting there like fist bumping. I was like, Simon, toss it. Finally he tossed it, and I smacked it. So, yeah, great kick, felt good about it.
You mentioned, ups and downs. This year's been really strong for you, though. What do you think you've been able to take, rise up this season?
There's probably a couple factors. The first, just maturity. As you get older, things become easier. You've been to the hotel more times. You've done warm-ups more times. You've done practice more times. You just understand the system. But with that, I feel like I've kind of stepped up as a leader as well, and that helps. That carries over to the field a lot. Obviously, having Randy and Jack in the room was big. Those are old guys. We always give them hell for being too old sometimes, but It's finally been kind of my season to step up a little bit and step up as a leader in the room, and that definitely helps on field.
Is there a yardage you felt like you had to get to there, or could you gone back quite a
I
bit
told
further?
him 58, so ball at the 50-yard line. And as we were entering into half, when they did that Hail Mary, that was the line of scrimmage as well that we needed.
Coach said that he was confident that you're going to make it, and obviously you said you had that gut feeling just when Coach says that and knew you were going to make that. How does that make you feel?
You know, it feels great because I've said it, and I'll be 100% honest. I always haven't been that guy. I mean, K-State fans give me hell, and it's fair there. But I always haven't been that guy. So I'm glad to finally reach the point in my career where I'm confident and I make others around me confident. So.
Coach also mentioned not having a kickoff is maybe taking some pressure off of your leg too, and you've been able to focus on one thing. I'm sure you like to be that competitor and do everything, but how much has that helped you?
No doubt, and honestly, it has helped me a lot. So I don't know how many people know this, but I had stress fractures in my back, and that was heading into my sophomore year career. And ever since, I haven't really been able to lift like I want to. I'm kind of a meathead in the weight room, but I haven't been able to lift like I want to. Haven't been able to back squat in 2 years, and so taking off the kickoffs has really helped my back more than anything. Yes, it helps my legs. Yes, I feel fresher, but not having to hit kickoffs, I mean, I used to struggle getting out of bed on Sundays, and that's no longer the case. So,
what was the moment like when you knew that there were still 2 minutes left to go after you made the kick?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of it was everybody was dapping me up and high-fiving me on the sideline. I was like, guys, I kept pointing to the clock. I was like, look it, there's still 1 minute and 50 seconds or whatever it was. So I was like, as excited as it was, I knew the game wasn't over, and so I was just trying to get the defense ready to go.
Did that mean anything more in the Sunflower Showdown?
You know, I was a military kid growing up, so I moved around a lot. And I wasn't always a big college football fan. My first D1 game was that 2021 season. That was the first time I ever got to see a D1 game. So I wouldn't say it meant anything more. But having been at K-State, it means more. And I gave a speech to the team before it was on Monday that I gave the speech to the team. And I explained to them, man, KU doesn't stand for what K-State stands for. K-State is a college of farmers. We're the college of hard work, and KU's arrogant. And I said that and got the team fired up, and so that means a lot to me, that I can represent our fans well.
Chris Tennant, K-State kicker, after the game. So he mentioned the hell he got from K-State fans there from a while back, a couple of years ago. Really his first year, go back to 2021. He was hearing it after missing some extra points. It reminds me of Jack Cantelli. And that goes back to the 2014 game against Auburn. And that was a game where K-State absolutely beat themselves. Cantelli missed 3 field goals. One of them was an absolute chip shot that should never be missed by anybody. And he missed 3 kicks, and he ended up getting benched. He responded by coming back, kicking better, and then returning in 2015 and having a really good year. We've seen Chris Tennant do the same thing, but I think much bigger, where now he's had his second year to respond from getting benched, and Ty Zentner's your kicker the rest of the way. Ty is being carried off the field. He hits the game-winning field goal in the Big 12 championship game, and everybody is remembering Ty. But if Chris was able to do his job a little bit better, he's that guy. Mm-hmm. He got that opportunity. He lost that opportunity with a bad showing against TCU. I got to say, I got to tip my cap to Chris Tennant and the comeback he has made in his career. The first 2 years, not memorable. This season, for sure, is a lot more memorable. He has gotten a lot better since he's been older, and I said it on Twitter on Saturday night. Somebody buy him a car. At the very least, he never pays for a drink again in Manhattan, Kansas, because he was huge in keeping the streak alive.
Yeah, he's been super reliable this year, which is the number one thing that you want out of a kicker. I remember after that 2022 season, obviously Zentner's not coming back. I remember talking to people almost confused. So they're not getting a kicker out of the portal. They're not, completely written him off, 100%. And then we asked Kleiman about it, and to Chris Kleiman's credit, it takes a lot to know when to stick by someone, and then when it is best for your team to move on from a situation that's bad, feelings aside. And he's had to be on both sides of this. He's stuck by Chris Tennant. He said, hey, Chris Tennant's going to be our guy. He's been a lot better. He's going to continue to get a lot better. He's still super young. Came back last year, was fairly good last year, had a couple things here or there, but nothing major. And then, it's all led up to this moment. And now, when you think about, this streak in the Sunflower Showdown, he's going to be one of those names that pops up. This is going to be the Chris Tennant game for K-State fans.
All right, let's take a timeout. And now is the time. If you want to get in on winning 2 tickets to K-State men's basketball tomorrow night against Fort Hays State, text TANG to 785-537-1350. Again, text the word TANG to 785-537-1350, and we'll be randomly selecting a phone number. And if you pick up your phone, you're winning the 2 tickets. They're my tickets. I typically give them to my parents, but I was like, no. I'm going to keep these for myself. I'm going to give these away to a loyal listener. So if you want a chance to win these tickets, again, text TANG to 785-537-1350. And coming up at around 5:35, 5:40 is when we'll start calling a number. When we come back, K-State, a coaching change is taking place. More on that next on Wildcat Insider.
You're listening to Wildcat Insider.
Tim, did you watch wrestling growing up at all?
I would say that I played more wrestling video games than I watched wrestling.
We are past the heyday of wrestling video games, that's for sure. I'm just, AJ's playing only wrestling things.
This does not register to me.
This one doesn't?
It does not, no.
Oh,
I will say.
It's Kurt Angle.
Okay.
Olympic gold medalist.
See, I know who that is. I'm aware. I can have conversations. I also played a lot of Legends of Wrestling, so I wasn't getting like the yearly WWE games or anything.
Kurt Angle won an Olympic gold medal with a broken freaking neck.
That's impressive.
Let me just say this.
True story.
He is an American hero for what he was able to accomplish at the Olympics. You do that with a broken neck to help your country win, you're a hero in my book.
That's what America's all about.
Darn right it is.
I also agree.
Shout out to America.
Shout out to America.
Him. Shout out to us. Us. All right. Earlier today, news coming down earlier this morning that K-State head soccer coach Mike Dibbini is going to be stepping down from his position with K-State soccer. Took over the program in 2014. That's when the program was born. I say take over. He started the program. He is the only head coach soccer has ever had at K-State, and he coached 9 seasons. It's also mentioned in K-State's announcement that a national search for a new head coach will begin immediately. I just want to share a few words about Mike Dibbini because, if you don't know, I broadcasted the first 5 seasons of K-State soccer on the radio. I was at every single match that K-State soccer played in its first 5 seasons. That includes the first ever match at St. Louis, the first ever win at Oakland in the state of Michigan, not too far from the Pontiac Silverdome. We stayed at a hotel right across the street. I was like, oh my God, that's where WrestleMania 3 took place. That's where Hogan slammed Andre. And just steps away from that, K-State picked up its first ever win, 6-0 against Oakland. Unfortunately, K-State hasn't seen the wins they were hoping for. As the program has grown older. Coach Dibbini mentions here in the announcement that stepping away to focus on some health issues. Remember, it was just a couple of years ago that Mike Dibbini had a heart attack, and so he, pretty worried about him. It was a long fight, long recovery, and he's able to get back to the sideline and coach again. I know he's never really quite been 100% since that took place. But I know Mike Dibbini. We texted a little bit earlier today. Of course, I wish him nothing but the best. One of the greatest people I've ever met. When I went on that first trip with K-State Soccer back in 2016, as soon as I stepped on that bus, I was considered a part of the family. Wherever they were going to eat, I was going with them. If they had a night off and they wanted to do something a little bit special, I was tagging along. I was invited to everything. As media guys, we can be left out sometimes. We're always looked at as media people. We got to keep some sort of distance. No, it wasn't like that at all. And Coach Dibbini was always helpful with any information I needed. If I needed to do an interview, coming on to the show and talking soccer with us, he was always so grateful to do that. We went to a Monday Night Raw together. Just us two, as boys. We just went to a Monday Night Raw in Kansas City and then got some Mexican taco shop after and just enjoyed the evening. So Mike Dibbini is a wonderful person, and I wish him absolutely nothing but the best. Wherever he lands next, cannot wait to hear what's next for Coach Dibbini.
Yeah, it's such it's a tough situation, and it's stuff you don't often see, especially in 2024, someone who's had to start a program from nothing and build it to where it is now. And it's frustrating that he can't be the guy to carry it forward and help take it to the next level. Because I think that I'm sure Gene Taylor, K-State fans, I'm sure those players would love for that to be the case. But it just isn't. It just isn't the situation. I remember when they first announced that soccer was coming and they announced his hiring, I was still at the Collegian at the time. And I got to do a one-on-one sit-down with him, and he could not have been nicer or more gracious to me as a student reporter. Working with him off and on throughout the years always has been great to work with. It's always been super nice and helpful to a lot of the younger reporters that the Mercury has sent to cover K-State soccer, because that's normally a starting ground for either soccer or volleyball. And I certainly wish him the best. He's been a great ambassador for K-State since he's been here. I'm sure that he wishes that things didn't end this way.
Sure.
And I'm sure that K-State wishes that they didn't have to, do this again. But it is the situation. And, onward and upward.
I know there weren't the most wins in the world these past 9 years, but certainly, some wonderful memories and moments for K-State soccer under Mike Dibbini. Their first ever meeting against KU, K-State won that match. And KU was a really good team that year. And K-State won that match. Their first ever Big 12 win was in Lawrence. Brooklyn Inns, their game winner against Colorado State off the left foot in overtime. To win it was a hell of a moment. A handful of players are right now playing professional soccer around the world. That includes Silke Bonin, who was a wonderful defender. Brooklyn Inns has been in Iceland, and she was drafted by in the NWSL. She was drafted. And I got to correct myself, it wasn't a heart attack. Mike Dibbini had a stroke. That was a couple of years ago around Christmas when he was back in L.A. Mike Dibbini's the reason there's been so many arguments on this show between Whataburger and In-N-Out. He's a SoCal guy. He's In-N-Out all the way. I bring Whataburger to the table. We clashed many times. There have been a few team meals that took place at In-N-Out, but I did get him to a Whataburger one time. So no doubt about it. Mike Dibbini, wish you nothing but the best in your future endeavors. We're definitely going to be keeping in touch. I consider that man a friend. Let's take a quick break. We'll wrap up hour one next.
You're listening to Wildcat Insider.
All right, we just have a few moments to take a look at this past weekend in the Big 12. BYU takes care of UCF 37-24. Cougs are now 8-0. By God, that does bother me a little bit. Boy, I tell you what, field goals were a big theme this weekend. Texas Tech makes one during the game, and the kicker, I guess, showed it was like something pro-Trump on his shirt. And then I didn't watch any of this game, but apparently then missed another, like a big kick or whatever. Anyway, TCU, who was down 31-14 at home to Tech, they come all the way back and win it 35-34. And TCU at 5-3 right now is not what I was expecting this year.
Yeah, Texas Tech going from, 5-1, right? They were 5-1, and they've lost their last two. It's not the way that you want this to go if you're Joey McGuire. You wanted to be kind of on an upward trajectory, and losing to a struggling, kind of woebegone, at least we thought, TCU team is bad.
The Texas Tech kicker, he faked the field goal. He ran it in for a touchdown, then showed his shirt or whatever, and then missed a field goal a little bit later on. A lot of blunders, like that this week in all area. NFL, college football, looking at the Bears over there. Anyway, West Virginia, Arizona. West Virginia wins 31-26. That was also a fake field goal game for West Virginia. That was also taken in for a touchdown. Teteroa McMillan, believe it or not, he had a touchdown in this game. His first touchdown since week 1.
That's crazy.
Isn't that nuts? Now, he's had big receiving games, just no touchdowns. He finished with 202 against the Mountaineers. Oklahoma State falls to Baylor 38-28. Damn, OSU.
That's bad.
Mike Gundy, especially the defense. That was an embarrassing performance by their defense. Terrible tackling, giving up big plays. Pendergrass, whatever his first name is, I don't know if he's the first string running back for Baylor, but I don't think he's that great. 6 carries, 142 yards.
Alan Bowman.
How do you let that goofball do that to you?
I don't know, man. Alan Bowman had almost 400 yards, 359 yards passing.
They could not run the football.
Oh, man.
Let's see. We had a couple of other scores. Houston, who K-State plays Saturday, a game-winning field goal as time expires to beat Utah 17-14, and Houston is 3-5. Colorado beats Cincinnati. That was actually a pretty tight contest there for a while. Colorado was able to break it out to 2 scores and win 34-23. All right, we got to wrap up hour number 1 of Wildcat Insider. And when we come back, you're going to hear from the voice of the Wildcats, Wyatt Thompson. I talked to him earlier today. You're going to hear that interview after this timeout. Text TANG to 785-537-1350 if you want to win tickets to tomorrow's game, exhibition against Fort Hays State for the K-State men.